I think the question we all need to ask ourselves is who gets to be American? And in my opinion, that is really looking forward to saying, how do we continue to live up to that ideal as that beacon of freedom and opportunity for people around the world? And that's not just people fleeing violence and persecution, but people who truly believe in American ideals, even if they weren't born here.
Immigration policy is not just one thing, it's many different things. And in our polling, we find that many Americans want to emphasize border security, but also want to have a pathway to citizenship for those who are in the country without authorization.
They grew up here, went to school here, pledged allegiance to that very flag every day in their classrooms, and believed they were part of this country. Usually sometime in their teenage years, their parents sat down with them and told them the grim reality. They have no country, not the one they left, nor the one that they currently live in. And so I introduced legislation 20 years ago, the DREAM Act, in an effort to give them a chance to earn their way to legal status and citizenship.
It took 40 years before the Immigration and Nationality Act was passed in 1965, which changed the entire system. We know immigration is a long game. We know it's a slow process, and we also know that future attempts to reform the system are probably going to take a long time as well.
This morning, Secretary Napolitano announced new actions my administration will take to mend our nation's immigration policy, to make it more fair, more efficient, and more just, specifically for certain young people, sometimes called dreamers. This is a temporary stopgap measure that lets us focus our resources wisely while giving a degree of relief and hope to talented, driven, patriotic young people.
DACA, by executive order, provided temporary protection from deportation to dreamers if they register with the government, pay a fee, pass a criminal and national security background check. They could have a temporary right to work here in the United States and be free from deportation.
I guess the irony a bit is that here I feel American, but not American enough. And I feel the opposite when I'm with my family. I feel like I'm Mexican, but not Mexican enough. I'm kind of in the middle where I kind of want to identify with both, but I can never be enough for either one.
I think in every sense except on paper, I think I'm an American, This is the only country I know. This is the country I grew up in. This is the country that I grew up going to school, standing up every morning, pledging allegiance to the flag, learning the history. I don't think I'm any less American than any, Anglo or African American or Asian American kid who has a legal status here.
The administration of the past 4 years has just been so iffy. You never really know what's going to happen to you. And in the back of my mind, I really try not to worry about it, day-to-day life, because I don't really have control of it, obviously. But at the same time, that worry is there that something can change tomorrow and change the direction of your life.
I'm very hopeful, actually. I'm very hopeful that things are going to turn around. I was definitely something up to a couple days ago that even though we're with a new administration, I realized that I hadn't heard from my DACA renewal, and my permit is gonna expire in 3 months. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if my DACA does not come in through, I won't be able to work. What am I gonna do?
for me, I mean, ever since I remember, it has been like ups and downs. You know, we get a little bit of hope and then it's taken away, or then it's the fear of not knowing what's going to happen next, or what if DACA ends, or the worst. We're always thinking about, I mean, not always, honestly, but you know, it's in there. It's in the back of my mind. And yeah, and I don't, that's not a healthy way of living. I know.
So Mexican young people make up the bulk of the nation's DACA recipients. Now, there are DACA recipients from all over the world, from Korea and from Europe, but it really is Mexican young people who are the single largest group among the nation's DACA recipients.
By not acting on comprehensive immigration reform and leaving it up to the executive branch and the courts to determine what rights and privileges that people have, including those who are undocumented, Congress has left unstable the status and the rights of millions of undocumented immigrants and their families, many of whom are U.S. citizens.
So what you have, instead of a permanent solution for people to really build their lives around, you have instead this sort of immigration whiplash. It's policy made in the executive branch. It can be changed by the courts. It's always challenged. No one really knows what's next, and it's hard for individuals who need to have certainty to really build their lives around something when it could be taken away at any moment.
You telling me that you're gonna give me the opportunity to go to elementary, middle school, and high school. Those are years of experiences and moments in a place, right? And then you're gonna put this barrier as soon as I achieve this milestone. It's tough. And so of course, you're going to feel part of this country. You're going to feel so part of this community. But when you graduate in 12th grade, it doesn't seem that way. And when I look back to the conversation that I had with some of my students, it was devastating back in the day.
My parents they went to school and college in Mexico. They're from Mexico City, and they got their bachelor's degrees. My dad in textile engineering, and then my mom in sociology. They knew that coming here, it would be, I guess, difficult to find a job that they necessarily intended to back in Mexico. So here in Idaho, there's a lot of potato factories. And that's where my dad's been working since we've got here for like 20 years. I think he's worked at. My mom, she initially did start as a potato factory worker, but then she managed to get a position in preschool, first as an assistant, then as a teacher. But unfortunately, so right now she's back at a potato factory, and we're just trying our best every day, I guess.
I just kept trying my best in school, signing up for all the classes I could. And what gave me that opportunity is really my parents' hard work and how they not only gave me the opportunity to do what I wanted, but also discover what I wanted. In Idaho, there's not a lot of light pollution, so you can see the night sky very well. Especially where I live in Roberts, Idaho, only 500 people live there, so at night you can see basically all the stars you want. I could see the Big Dipper, and I realized, like, man, I really like math. I want to find a way to apply this, but I feel like astronomy is just one of that last frontier that I could really just not only be interested in, but also use what I think I'm good at. Dr. Mohammed Khan, he's my research advisor here at Delaware State. He's helped me out tremendously. He's not only giving me like just tips as far as research, but advice towards applications and what people are looking for, and just being a better person in general.
With Carlos, I found that he already knew in sophomore semester what he wants to do, and which is very, different from other students. And so he knew what he was getting into. He knew the challenges that he was going to face. But my impression is, given the challenges that he has faced coming to this point, has already prepared him to deal with any other difficulties or challenges that he might face later on.
He's an immigrant himself from India, and he knows about the struggle of coming here and not having the same opportunities as citizens. But he worked hard, and he's definitely, I hope to get some of that from him.
A lot of my students, they are majoring in nursing, engineering, computer science, business. As immigrants, we always have to do the best.
So back in the 90s, for example, 2/3 of Americans said immigrants were a burden on the country. But today, in our most recent polling, we find that 2/3 of Americans say there is strength for the country because of the talents and hard work that they bring. That's a change in attitudes. It's been general, it's been gradual, but it's one that's been shared by both Democrats and Republicans, by Latinos and non-Latinos, by Asians and non-Asians. It's across the board.
A lot of fellowships and researching positions require citizens. So right now I'm just basically hoping for the best, but yeah, it's gonna be very difficult finding a fellowship or a postdoctoral position that will, I guess, be willing to work with me.
I was born in Costa Rica, and I came to the US around 5.5 years old. We came on a visa. We stayed, well, my dad had already been in the US in previous years working. He used to be a truck driver. We've been in the process since we got here of getting residency through family, but it's taken so many years. My dad, since he was here before we came here, he has a social security, so that has been such a blessing for him and us to just get like a credit to be able to buy a house or things like that.
I came into college thinking I was going to do physical therapy, and I got in it because my older brother did medicine and I did soccer, so it was like a perfect mixture between medicine and sports. But now I really found a love for personal training. I actually remember specifically sophomore year of high school, where teachers were really pushing us to prepare to apply for college, and it's when I started to research myself on what the options were for me, and I realized Georgia had a law that undocumented students couldn't attend the top 5 colleges in the state, and not only that, even if you attend college, you had to pay out-of-state tuition. So it really hit me that my process was not gonna be the same as my friend sitting next to me in a classroom. We talk about what we want in our careers mainly, and how hard it's been to come from different states and adapt to the environment, but also how we're gonna keep going, where we're gonna see ourselves in the future.
I think that the things that most Americans take for granted on a regular basis are actually really, really hard for someone who's undocumented, even for a dreamer with DACA, even with that little bit of protection. You know, if I were to get caught speeding on the highway, it might be a financial burden to pay that speeding ticket, but it's not going to jeopardize my status as a citizen. If I get caught jaywalking, same thing. But each of the individual members of the undocumented community, they know that any tiny little slip up, even on something as small as a traffic infraction, could completely upend their lives. They also do have to think often about, how do we protect the family members around us who don't have status? How do we make sure that we're not unintentionally exposing anybody to law enforcement? And that's a reality they live with on a day-to-day basis that many Americans have never had to consider.
It's very frustrating that other people see us as a threat, where we're just trying to achieve the same goals as everyone else.
Anatomy is really important because you have to know where every muscle, bone, ligament, nerve, where the joints are. And then when someone says, I have pain, you have to be able to visualize this looking at this. So you have to know what muscles are crossing here. Where's the clavicle? Where's the scapula coming up? Where do they meet? Where's the joint? But you did really good on that part this week. So do you want to go practice some exercises?
Yeah.
All right, come on over.
I definitely feel like an American every day, but when it comes to paperwork, it doesn't feel like it.
So I want your right foot to come on back. Extend your arm back and extend all the way forward. Perfect.
The country gets to benefit from everything I have to offer, but I'm not able to appreciate or benefit from everything that the U.S. has to offer. This country was literally founded with immigrants. Immigrants have made this country what it is. So for the country to turn back on what it was really founded on is very ironic.
A border wall which is moving faster than anybody would believe.
When President Trump was then running for office and then became the president, the words that he has used to describe Mexican immigrants, the rise of anti-immigrant sentiment, particularly related to race and ethnicity, continued so much that many Americans had this visceral reaction to immigrants. To understand the people who supported Trump and followed the rhetoric of anti-immigrant sentiment that he kept promoting, we have to recognize that racism has always been part of our immigration law history.
I think race has a lot to do with it because in the last 4 years, there was a lot of racism towards other ethnicities and other communities. But the American dream is to be able to come to more opportunities. So if these people want to seek that and go away from situations that are harmful to their families, why not give them that opportunity?
In recent years, we've asked the American public whether or not they see a more diverse country as a strength for the country. And we found that yes, the majority of Americans view a more diverse population as good for the nation as a whole. Now again, not all Americans hold this point of view, and there are some partisan differences along these lines, but generally speaking, we found Americans are supportive of the view that a more diverse America is a stronger America.
America for a long time has been a very welcoming country, that beacon of freedom and opportunity to people fleeing violence and persecution. We need to continue to take that leadership role around the world and continue to allow refugees to come to the United States to seek protection.
You know, I've lived here my whole life. I've done my best both in the public schooling system here in the United States and now, you know, the public university system here at this HBCU. And so I'm basically as American a student as anybody else that's lived here their whole life. Y también le quiero mandar gracias a toda mi familia, mis tíos y tías y mis abuelos.
Every parent wants better for their kids, right? I want for my kids a better life than I had, and hopefully they will achieve that. And I'm pretty sure with Carlos' parents, they wanted to have better access to education.
Oh my
Cheyenne Kimoko.
Pero ahorita ya.
Kayla.
Gracias.
Marissa.
Ahorita.
Elise. Vanetta. Oliver. Carlos Alberto Garcia Diaz.
When you have your family behind you, because sometimes you get a little bit discouraged that, oh, because of my immigration status, I cannot apply for XYZ job. But then there's somebody behind you saying, no, you will get through this.
After graduation, they have 100% intention to stay in the United States. And the crazy part is their vision and their purpose is to continue helping the community. You know, all the challenges that this country has put in front of them, and they still want to provide something positive.
I think people think of illegal immigrants like something else, something subhuman or not even human, and illegal aliens, oh, like we're so scary, but dreamers are everywhere. Some of us go to college, some of us don't. Some of us are working at some business. It's just, we're just people.
Salud, felicidades para todos. Cuando me los traje de México chiquitos, a mi hijo de 1 año y a Fernanda de 4 años, veníamos con la ilusión de mejorar su vida, mejorar su ambiente, porque en México era mucha violencia, mucho robo, mucho asalto. Y cuando venimos para acá con esa decisión firme de que ellos tuvieran un futuro mejor, pero nunca pensé que llegaran a tener un grado universitario.
Of course, I think we all have high hopes, but they've been taken away from us time and time again. And we're just definitely ready for something to occur, but we won't be surprised if nothing happens.
Having good parents means that they're able to give you a life that they didn't have. At least that's what I've learned from my parents. They weren't able to have a high school diploma. They weren't able to have a bachelor's degree. So for them to be able to do that for me, I consider them great parents. My older siblings stayed in Costa Rica. They're a lot older than me, so they were in college or already working jobs. What worries me the most is that one day DACA is no longer a law that I can be protected under, and that it will not only affect me, but my family.
How are you?
Congratulations
So nice
to
to meet
you.
you.
Nice to meet you. And I'm sorry I got coffee on my
Oh,
hand.
you're fine.
No, you must feel great.
It just hit me. I'm getting nervous and excited and just feeling all the feels.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. When I found out you were the speaker, I was like, oh my God, I know her.
Oh, yes. So you're a long way from home.
Yeah, 12-hour drive.
All right. Well, I know it's been a great experience for
It
you.
has. It really has. I love this HBCU, to be honest. So it's
Now
been
you
great.
got to bring all those talents back to Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. So honored to share in this day with
Thank you so much. It means a lot. Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Oh. To the resilient class of 2022. That's right. Job well done. You have overcome odds of biblical proportion to be here today. You should be proud of yourselves. Please give yourselves another round of applause.
I will contribute the beautiful art of being a personal trainer to the U.S.
Diana Morales Castillo.
It may seem like a little career behind all the other careers on the list, but to be able to give people the opportunity to become the best version of themselves through physical activity, it means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to the community.
The United States offers a tremendous promise to all people who come here, but particularly for immigrants, that this is a place that welcomes them, and this is a place where they can contribute to society if they so want. And the dreamers, in my mind, are among those immigrants who want to contribute to society. They've already been doing that because the country has given them a chance to be able to live the promise of the potential to be great.
There's so much uncertainty through 10 plus years of not really knowing if there's going to be a happy ending. So having to wait and wait is really frustrating.
I was born in a small town in Puebla. My dad had come to the United States. One, he was single for about 6 months, and he came to visit a cousin in Delaware. So he kind of like scouted the area. He went back to Mexico, met my mom, and then they got married. They had me. My parents decided to immigrate to the United States when I was 2. And then in terms of employment, my dad was working at a dairy company and McDonald's for a few years, working 2 jobs. So I always felt like there was a part of my dad that was never present because he would leave at 5 in the morning and we wouldn't see him till 7, 8 at night. And I think till this day, that's still very much true. And then my mom started working in fast food restaurants, and eventually she found work years later as a nanny and a housekeeper.
My parents have been very hardworking individuals with their own American dream. A lot of what my drive has been throughout life is to be cognizant and to recognize all they have sacrificed and why they have sacrificed it. And that reason is me. I don't like to think of myself living in fear. I think that's counterproductive to what we have to overcome. There is a fear, certainly. There's a fear every day that, hey, will my dad get pulled over? And even though he has a driving privilege card, will whatever officer noticed that, it's not like a driver's license, it's a privilege card, which basically, screams like, hey, I'm undocumented. Is that going to turn into ICE getting involved? Is that going to cause family separation? Is that going to cause our family to be broken up? After living in this country for 22 years at this point now, it's something that's like, in many ways, like I say, we don't want to think about it. We don't want to, dive into that fear, but it's very much something that's in the back of our minds every day that we have to wake up and deal with, and even if we don't want to.
Hey.
Hey, Miguel.
How's it going?
Going great. How are you?
Good
to see you.
While I was in high school, I never forgot my status.
Okay.
How's everything going?
Good. Law school's hard, but
Okay.
a part of me felt scared to disclose my status, but I can say that, thanks to some of my teachers, they really encouraged me and really empowered me to not be scared to disclose my status, because they made me realize in a way that, I can't be an advocate and I can't change people's minds without being my true self. Father Bretta always had his door open for me. And it wasn't just him, it was everybody in the school, teachers, guidance counselors, administrative, everybody really backed up the cause of, the dreamer and, getting me, out of Salesianum into college. Had I not had DACA, I wouldn't have deportation relief. I wouldn't have a work authorization. I wouldn't be able to work. I wouldn't have the benefits that I enjoy. But it's still frustrating. So you kind of get a sense of what the law is about. Unfortunately, law school doesn't teach you how to be a lawyer. It teaches you how to think like a lawyer. So my biggest advice is definitely do a paralegal or law-related job before.
What sort of lawyer are you looking to become?
I want to do civil rights and civil litigation. The way for immigration reform has been a long trajectory. A lot of promises, not much action. It's been heartbreaking, I think, as well, because when we see that there's a light of hope in our legal system and legislative system and in Congress, all of a sudden, the light turns off for a couple of years and we don't hear of these conversations coming up till either the next presidential election or the next time it becomes a hot topic. But it's been a long wait, and I think it's affected my family deeply, because family separation is one of the big things that perhaps I didn't experience directly, but I see my parents suffer and go through.
I think Miguel had a sense of vocation very early on, like what he was called to do as the result of who he was and who he is and his story, that there was an obligation to give back to his community. There was an obligation to advocate for others who shared his immigration status. There was a calling there to really do something with this opportunity that he'd been given.
I became very passionate about trying to do something and became involved in a lot of advocacy work. During college, I had explored many careers and discovered that being a lawyer was probably going to be the most impactful thing I could do for the issues that I cared about. It's frustrating to hear this rhetoric that, individuals like me are not welcome here. I feel like I'm doing everything that this country values, working hard, pursuing a higher education, helping others, and helping one's community. To be doing all the requirements that are asked of just about any individual who is a good and law-abiding citizen, and to be denied the opportunity for a legal citizenship, it's not that I feel entitled, but I think I deserve the right to that access.
The Dreamers are such a unique group because they didn't choose to come here. They didn't break any laws. They were brought here by their parents. And our laws, unfortunately, our immigration system just does not accommodate people like them.
No matter, what obstacles I currently face as a DACA recipient, I feel a moral responsibility to make life better for those who come after me.
The nation has had a long, ongoing discussion about immigration reform, something that's been going on since the 1980s. And there have been various changes to immigration law since then. But in terms of more recently, the nation has talked about immigration reform and immigration changes, but it remains to be seen when that will happen, if at all.
I've been in Delaware for most of my life. You know, I went to middle school, high school, have friends. I do feel, in a way, like an American, but then, you know, there's people who clearly tell us that we don't belong. And you find, I find, you know, I'll speak for myself, I see those microaggressions like everywhere, like the stores, you know, people look at you, or in my past employments, people being openly racist, for a lack of a better word. Yeah.
I want you guys to get creative this morning. I'm gonna give you guys, every single one of you, a piece of paper. You're gonna grab some markers. We have some here. I heard we have some color markers up here as well. You're gonna draw on this paper things that are important to you, something that will help me get to know you, all right? She's married, she has children, she has a career, she has been in college while raising a family, and never once gave up, never once did I hear her even talk about giving up. If anything, I would hear her talk about, okay, what's the next step? What's the next move?
I've been told that I'm a connector, like I'm always pulling people in, like, oh, you're looking for a job, you know, this place is hiring. I'm all for helping others. I work at a hospital, but I also have my private practice as a therapist.
I will start with, I am Latina proud.
As soon as I got DACA, it's almost like retaking my education. You know, I always knew that I wanted to either get a master's or a PhD. So I just like continued with my goals and aspirations. On one hand, I'm able to work, you know, travel within the United States. I bought a house, you know, doing what, you know, U.S. citizens can do. But on the other hand, it's like a constant reminder. My grandfather always used to say, you know, education is something that they can't take away. You know, so even undocumented, you know, I was able to go to college. You know, once I had DACA, I got my master's. So even if DACA ends, you know, I have my education, like I have my master's, I'm licensed.
Many of them are actually in their late 30s now. We know that the first DREAM Act was introduced in about 2001. It's always been bipartisan. It's never made it across the desk to the president. So we know that it's an issue that's been there for a very long time. These people are no longer considered young people, right? They have their own families, and they're hitting that prime working age time when they should be able to really start accumulating the wealth they're going to accumulate and looking forward to what the next couple of decades of their lives look like.
Many of the issues that I see in the people that I work with, sometimes it's a reflection of my fears, of my anxieties, of my stress. But you know, a lot of people struggle with, you know, the constant fear, like, you know, I don't want to drive all the time because, you know, what if I get pulled over, and what's going to happen to my kids? Or, you know, some of the families that have been affected by COVID, and many of them don't qualify for the stimulus, and they're struggling financially. And so it's so many things that hit us or hit our community.
She's able to step into the shoes of those people that she sees, and sees them for who they are, treats them with dignity and respect, and is able to relate to them, I believe, at a higher level, because she knows what they are going through.
The idea that, you know, that we're freeloaders and we don't pay taxes. Yeah, I guess some people don't, but the majority, you know, if they're undocumented, they do pay taxes. They get an I-10, a tax ID number, and they pay taxes through their paychecks, and they're never gonna see that. they're never going to see the benefits of Social Security.
We know immigrants, whether they're here with a legal status or whether they're here unauthorized, we know that they are working, we know they're contributing, and we know they are doing so at all levels of our economy. What really holds back undocumented immigrants from that contribution tends to be that lack of a legal work permit. So they may have really high skills, but not be able to work in a job that meets the skills and ability and even the education levels they have.
A great number of us, have, continued going to school, we are working, we bought houses, so we are contributing. And that it's time to get something permanent.
We need to pass legislation for the Dreamers. We need to pass legislation for all these other undocumented immigrants here who have been here for decades, so that they can come out of the shadows and just be fully immersed in their communities.
I got here when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't have a lot of recollection. It's been many, many years. It's been 3 decades since I've gotten to the U.S. I practically grew up in Delaware in school. I went to elementary school here, I went to middle school, and then high school. I was involved in sports, just like any other student. At that time, I did have a driver's license. There was no DACA at that time. This happened a month right after September 11th, and everything was very hostile. The ICE agent that was taking me could not even look at me in the eyes. He could not even talk to me. I was the only girl. They were all men. I felt a direct connection with the community when they felt hopeless. Father Chris, I always called him Father Chris, but he went by Brother Chris. In his work, he was very passionate about helping those who did not have a voice. And he was the motor behind all this activism. And many times we went to do talks about immigration or immigrant rights, where I would share my story and he would share his stories. And it was one of the ways that we were able to open hearts and change people's perspective about immigrants. We did a lot of advocacy. So many times we did rallies, we did marches. We definitely got together and had community meetings where we asked the community to write letters to our senators, to our representative, and push for whatever the situation was that we were working on. We met with Tom Carper or Mike Castle or Joe Biden. I was able to complete my Bachelor of Arts in Political Science at Newman University. There was no DACA at that time. When it first started, one of the requirements was that you had to apply before turning 31 years old. And I was this much. I was 30. So I could have aged out. I have people that I know, that I worked with, who worked really hard on the DREAM Act. And when DACA passed, they were not eligible. My passion is social justice. I definitely have a heart for helping people in need or those who don't have a voice. And definitely my situation has motivated me to continue working with the community. To be culturally integrated and not legally recognized, it's frustrating. It's always in my mind. Maybe I don't think about it actively every single moment of the day, but there is a time during the day that I know something comes up. A conversation or a situation that just reminds me that I'm not at that point, that it's a temporary situation.
There's a lot of things that we could fix in our immigration system. Some of them are about that overhaul of the legal system, making sure it works better, making sure that people have legal opportunities to come here. And some of it's remedial. Some of it is about those pieces that would legalize the undocumented, give a permanent legislative solution to dreamers.
It's not going to be easy, and we're not probably going to get everything we would want, and therefore smaller pieces of legislation would be helpful.
Today, some 45 million people were born in another country, and they make up almost 14% of the nation's population. But also, many of them have children born here in the U.S.
My father is a U.S. citizen, and my mother is a permanent resident.
The number of people with either a direct connection to immigration, or who are the children of immigrant parents, that population share is now approaching about 20% of the U.S. population. So about 1 in 5 Americans are either immigrants themselves or the children of immigrant parents.
I cannot express my gratitude enough for President Biden on the first hours that he was in office to recognize the needs of the DACA recipients and the Dreamers. I want to work with him and work with both parties across the aisle to make this dream come true for so many who deserve it. They've waited long enough.
So my plans are to be a good mother, to be able to, at one point, being able to become a citizen, or to be able to have a legal status in this country, so I can continue contributing to this country, to this community, and be able to be there for my children.
Hi everybody, just want to provide a quick update. I just finished my first year at my PhD program here at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and it's been quite the learning experience. Definitely had a lot of ups and downs, but learned a whole lot. Living here for a year now in New England, all the goods and bads of growing up are hitting me, definitely.
It's crazy to think that I now have a job coming out of college and I'm no longer a student. It feels kind of weird knowing that after this summer break I won't be going back to school. But yeah, I'm just gonna take you along to see how my shift goes. So I am part-time front desk and part-time trainer, taking clients, scheduling them, and then I'll do some training sessions. Headed home, and that's a day in my life.
Hi, this is Miguel Tapia Collin, and I am here with my parents. They're visiting me, and we're celebrating Father's Day. We're in New York City. I just finished my first year of law school, and I'm working at Out & Golden, a plaintiff side employment law firm, and I get to treat my parents today for Father's Day and a belated Mother's Day to Casa Enrique, one of the best restaurants in New York City. Here's our delicious food.
I see myself as, having my own private practice, opening a center to help people with trauma, case management, which is so needed. That's how I see myself, helping others.
Being a DACA recipient, I have to constantly explain who I am to other people that don't understand. And most people are open to the idea, but some people just don't accept my own existence. They treat me as something else, in certain cases. And at the end of the day, it's just going to take the ability to understand each other and form that trust.